Hello, dear friends. You are on the Ruslan Belov channel, and this is the daily summary of combat operations from the Ukrainian front. Let's get straight to the battlefield overview today, because there is a lot of news, and it is good news. The armed forces of Ukraine are facing a total collapse in Pokrovsk and on the Kupiansk direction. So, friends, the Russian army continues to advance confidently. Over the past 24 hours, there have been several successful breakthroughs in the Dnipropetrovsk region, near Lyman, in the Siversk area, and in the Kharkiv region. And, as I already mentioned, in Pokrovsk, the armed forces of Ukraine are suffering one failure after another. But today, let us begin not with Pokrovsk, but with the Kharkiv region. Here, Russian troops made an astonishing push forward, by 4 kilometers. And this advance is important not so much because of the numbers, although they are impressive, but because of where it happened. Just look, from Kupiansk to the village of Sadov, and the village itself came under Russian control. So what do we have here? First, the last fortified area of the Ukrainian forces on the right bank of Kupiansk has been cleared. That is the Yubileyny district. There were multi-story buildings there, and the Ukrainian troops had been holding out for quite a while, preventing Russian forces from advancing into the southern part of the city. But this fortified zone has fallen. The multi-story buildings are now under Russian control and have been cleared. Then everything developed rapidly from there. Using that district as a base, Russian troops cleared the entire southern part of right bank Kupiansk. This area mostly consisted of private houses, and from there they moved further toward Sadov. The distance between the southern edge of Kupiansk and the northern edge of Sadov is actually small, just about 1 kilometer. So there were no major difficulties in covering that distance, nor in taking Sadov itself. The village is tiny, just a few small streets, and before the war, only about 50 people lived there. But do you know what the problem for the Ukrainian forces is now? Look here, at the left bank. See that? The neck of the pocket has become much narrower. That means the situation for Ukrainian troops on the left bank has become far worse. And of course, they understand that. They are trying to launch counterattacks to unblock their trapped comrades. Recently, they carried out a counterattack with infantry, attempting to break through Russian positions to open a corridor for the encircled garrison. But they achieved nothing. Now, what can we expect next? There is a certain problem here, which I see no reason to hide. The problem lies in these forests. The Malye-Rovny forest and the Kashtansky forest. They have not yet been cleared by Russian troops. That means the Ukrainian forces still have positions there, and they can accumulate in those woods, putting constant pressure and threat of counterattack on Russian positions both in the Yubileyny district and in southern Kupiansk. To stabilize the situation, those forests must be taken under control. Until that happens, the control here will not be entirely secure, which naturally brings certain risks. To achieve full stability, Russian troops need to take Sobolevka, Blahodatovka, and the surrounding forested area. That would make control here truly solid. Now let us move on to another city where the Ukrainian forces are also facing serious problems, Lyman. Did you know that Russian troops already control a small part of Lyman? Yes, you heard that right. If in Kupiansk, Russian troops now control about 70% of the city, then in Lyman it is about 0.7%. But still, there is already a foothold. Over the past day, Russian forces managed to enter Lyman from the area of Mazlyakivka and occupy around 20 private houses on Vishneva and Partizanska streets. For now, the advance inside Lyman is about 200 meters, but we all understand that this is just the beginning. The most important developments took place east of the city. Take a look. The advance there was more than 3 kilometers across a fairly wide front. Russian troops managed to cut the railway line and reach the lakes. Moreover, they even reached the Lyman-Siversk highway, but could not yet secure positions there, so they stopped near the lakes. The distance from there to the highway is only 1 kilometer and 200 meters. And what does that mean? It means the road is no longer usable for logistics. Any vehicle attempting to move there would be immediately destroyed. For now, the threat is greater not for Lyman itself, but for Yampil, because Yampil received supplies through that very road. And not only Yampil, but also Siversk. Now the settlement is blocked from the west, and reports came yesterday that the fighting has already moved into the center of Yampil. We are watching closely. According to reports, Russian forces have taken control of an area of about 8 square kilometers. Let us move on. The Ukrainian defense has completely collapsed near Siversk. Take a look here. Russian troops made a push of 2 kilometers and effectively reached the southern outskirts of the city. From the last houses of Siversk on Pavlov Street, Russian troops are now separated by only 250 meters. The city, as you can see on the map, is now trapped. Supply routes are under fire. The nearest supply road is 2.5 kilometers away. To the north, another supply road lies at a distance of 3 kilometers and 700 meters. It looks like we will soon witness the beginning of the storming of Siversk. Everything points to that. The assault on Kostiantynivka also continues, and there are gains for the Russian army there as well. Russian soldiers have cleared a suburban Darka area and advanced within Kostiantynivka itself, along Alexander Ostrovsky Street, to a depth of about 1 kilometer, even slightly more. As you can see, quietly and steadily, the section of the city under Russian control keeps expanding every day. The key now is to widen the control zone across the highway and railway line and secure Ivanopil to the south. That would make the approach to the city complete and stable. And now, to Pokrovsk. The Ukrainian forces are experiencing a total collapse there. Look what happened. The southern part of the city has been completely cleared. These are high-rise residential districts, 3 in total: Lazurny, Solnechny, and Shaktyorsky. Take a close look at the map, a continuous area of apartment blocks. Under Russian control came 62 high-rise buildings. Now, do you think the Ukrainian forces who failed to hold such a massive residential complex can defend the private sector? The question is rhetorical, and everyone understands the answer. In addition to clearing the apartment blocks, Russian troops advanced to the suburban village of Hanatovka and immediately took it under control. As I said, total collapse. The Ukrainian forces cannot hold anything here. They are trying to flee to Hryshyn. They tried the day before yesterday. They tried again yesterday to break through toward Hryshyn. But according to reports from the ground, the corridor there is even narrower than it looks on the map, and they have almost no chances. Meanwhile, Russian soldiers are already breaking through to Hryshyn itself, so if Ukrainian troops are to escape, it would have to be beyond that point. Russian forces have also taken 2 small settlements in the eastern part of the city, Ro and Hanatovka. In the northern part of Pokrovsk, the situation for the Ukrainian army is even worse. Russian troops have reached the northern outskirts of the city in 2 places. Tightening the encirclement ring, just one final step remains. According to reliable pro-Russian sources, the Ukrainian forces in Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad will no longer be able to break out. If they attempt to move westward en masse, their losses could reach up to 90%. That means the garrison in these settlements has only a few days left. It will be interesting to see how many prisoners will come from these 2 towns. It is known that the Ukrainian command previously withdrew its elite units from the pocket, leaving weaker formations behind. Let us move on. The Vostok group of forces continues to show strong results. Over the past week, they have taken 7 settlements under control. That is roughly 1 per day. In the past 24 hours alone, they advanced in the Zaporizhia region across a front 5 kilometers wide. Under control came the last village on the eastern bank of the Yanchur River, the village of Krasnohorska. Thus, the entire eastern bank on this sector has been cleared, and all settlements are now under Russian control. What comes next? Next is the village of Rybin, located on the western bank of the Yanchur River. That means the river needs to be crossed, and I can tell you, it has already been done. According to local reports, fighting for Rybin has already begun. Considering the village is small, roughly the same size as Krasnohorsky, these battles are unlikely to last long. And after that will come the main and final battle for this defensive line, though in fact it has already started, the battle for Uspenivka, the largest and most fortified settlement in this area. I personally have no doubt whatsoever about the outcome of the battle. Without question, the fighters of the Vostok grouping will take Uspenivka. The only question is timing. How long will it take? A few days, a week, or several weeks? And then? And then everything, as you can clearly see on the maps, opens up. Sparse, small villages, and mostly empty terrain without serious defensive structures. And although for now it is still 15 kilometers to Huliaipol, once Uspanivka falls, those 15 kilometers will be covered fairly quickly. And then the major, decisive battle for the town of Huliaipol will begin on this sector. Just today, the Ukrainian resource Deep State updated the map showing most of Uspanivka already in Russian hands. That is, however large this settlement may seem, the Ukrainian defense there is simply crumbling and they cannot do anything about it. In other words, the Ukrainian forces cannot hold on to any populated place. It seems they are counting on making a stand in the larger settlement of Huliaipol, although it is possible Russian forces will not get bogged down in street fighting there, but will move further west, blocking the town from all sides. The prospects for Russian forces here are simply excellent. At the same time, the situation is developing in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Last night, reports began to arrive from the ground that Russian fighters from the area of Yehorivka reached Danilivka and even entered the village. Objective footage was not available, but such a move is quite realistic, since the distance between Yehorivka and Danilivka is only 1 kilometer. And if Russian fighters take Danilivka under control, physical control over the Pokrovska-Huliaipol road will be established. Consequently, not only will Huliaipol's logistics from the north be cut off, but the supply to all those villages located along that road will be severed. Today there are also reports that Russian troops seized another settlement, Novoalexandrivka, and in addition pushed through from Ivanivka into Novopavlivka. Although we expected the start of battles for that large settlement next year, do not be too surprised if the settlement comes under Russian control before the end of this year. In general, a huge trouble is brewing for the Ukrainian forces here, and they cannot do anything to stop the Far Eastern Express. As you can see, they are in trouble everywhere. Here, in the Huliaipol area. In Pokrovsk, there is a total collapse, and Mirnohrad will of course fall together with Pokrovsk. In Kostiantynivka, the fighting is already in the town, and the Russian army is gradually taking it street by street. They have reached the outskirts of Siversk already. They have begun entering Lyman and Kupiansk. Kupiansk is also a disaster for them. Everywhere, continuous problems. And I will tell you, the situation for the Ukrainian forces will only worsen from here. A massive strike on Ukraine's energy-generating infrastructure. Hit were the Dobrotvorskaya thermal power plant in Lviv region, the Burshtyn thermal power plant, the largest currently in Ukraine, and the Kalush combined heat and power plant in Ivano-Frankivsk region, the Ladizhin thermal power plant in Vinnytsia region, and the Dnipro hydropower station in Zaporizhzhia region. Strikes were also carried out in the area of the city of Stry in Lviv region. Several very important facilities are located nearby. First, the largest substation in Europe, the Western Ukrainian substation. Its task includes providing energy flows between Ukraine's and Europe's energy systems. It is through it, after the strikes on Ukraine's generation, that the main flows from EU countries run. And in the Stry area, there is also the largest underground gas storage facility in Ukraine. There were also strikes on an airfield near Starokostiantyniv. Another round of strikes hit gas fields in Poltava region. Substations in the Kiev area were also struck. In South Korea, there was a meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping. The main points: the meeting lasted 1 hour and 40 minutes. After the meeting, Trump immediately flew away. He is dissatisfied. He is furious. Nothing came out of it for him. Xi outplayed him, writes Yuri Podolyaka. Moreover, he left without even issuing a joint statement with Chairman Xi. And afterwards he completely forgot that he was supposed to attend the APEC summit. That is all you need to know about his meeting with Xi in South Korea, which he rated 12 out of 10. Later he wrote on social media that Ukraine was discussed at length and in depth, that he would go to China in April and Xi would come to the United States later. As usual, he said it was a tremendous meeting. Xi's statement is much more modest. During the last round of consultations, the economic and trade teams of both countries reached a principled consensus on key issues. China has shown the world that it can act toward the United States from a position of strength, and the United States, in turn, must reckon with its opinion and cannot force the Chinese off their chosen path. Xi Jinping did not fall for Trump's bluff. Both sides stuck to their positions. The strangest summit, that is how one could characterize the meeting of the leaders of China and the United States in South Korea. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping had showered each other with praise ahead of the meeting. However, it was held in closed format, and neither side is in a hurry to disclose the results of the talks, comments Americanist political scientist Malek Dudakov. This meeting could well end in freezing the trade conflict, but it is too early to speak of a serious de-escalation. China made symbolic concessions, promising to buy more American soy and supply rare earth metals to the United States. In exchange, the United States will lower some tariffs and ease sanctions in the chip and aircraft component sectors. As the expert emphasizes, both sides remained at their positions. The main elements of tension in relations, for example on Taiwan, were avoided by the heads of state, and in trade, another escalation cannot be ruled out. Trump's team, ahead of the summit, also tried to strengthen its bargaining position by promising for the first time since 1992 to resume nuclear testing. However, that is easier said than done. The situation with the United States nuclear triad remains consistently dire. Trillions of dollars are needed for its modernization, which do not exist. New warheads have not appeared in the Pentagon's arsenal for a long time. They have to rebuild and modernize the old ones, Dudakov notes. He recalls that promises under the previous administration to resume uranium and plutonium enrichment in the United States remained unrealized dreams. The Sentinel program to modernize the old Minuteman III missiles has not really taken off. In the new arms race, Americans are beginning to lag not only behind Russia, but in some aspects behind China. Therefore, Trump's current floundering is yet another attempt to bluff while holding a weak hand, the political scientist summed up. As China Central Television reported, Xi Jinping's and Trump's talks in Busan, South Korea, lasted 1 hour and 40 minutes. No joint statement was made. An hour before the meeting, the American president wrote on his social media that he wants to resume nuclear testing, which is a major diplomatic mistake. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. That was done, including a complete update and renewal of existing weapons during my first term. Because of the enormous destructive power, I hated doing it, but I had no choice. Russia is in second place and China is in third, but it will be so in 5 years as well. Because of testing programs in other countries, I instructed the Department of War to begin testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. This process will begin immediately.